Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Mind, Your Reality, Your Results. We are a weekly live show where I interview experts in the matter of mindset, so you guys can learn about that and have the amazing results you want in your life. If you don't know me, my name is Leah Fink, and I'm the owner and founder of All Thrive, where we provide amazing experiences for people to raise their self-awareness and develop skills that will directly help them in their lives and with their family and friends and in their businesses. I am so excited today to be joined by Shulamit. Just thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure, Leah. I'm so excited. It's fun. It's rare, I have to say, that I get to connect online with a fellow Canadian. So I'm really delighted about the Canadianness.
Excellent. Me too. Now that you've said that, it's great to have the international component. It's also great to be a little closer to home.
Yes.
Excellent. So as you guys are watching today, even if you're watching after the fact, we would love for you to join us in discussion. So if you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to use the question comment box and we can answer them for you. Even if you're watching this after the fact, you can toss those questions in there and we'll make sure to get back to you with an answer.
Yeah, we'll pop back around to say hello and follow up. Excellent.
So Shula, would you like to start by telling us a little bit more about yourself and how you came to be here?
Well, I'm a mindset and a resilience consultant, and I help women identifying entrepreneurs manage their mindset and pilot their emotions so that they can overcome the anxiety and isolation that characterizes the emotional roller coaster of running a business. And so, we all know what LinkedIn is for. LinkedIn is for creeping people. And so as I was going through LinkedIn, I noticed you were working in the same area and also you were Canadian, which was thrilling to me. So I reached out and here we are.
Amazing. So what kind of work do you do with those women really to help them through that? Because that's obviously mindset is a huge topic. What does that look like?
So what I offer, there are two aspects to the work we do together. The first is the emotional component, right? When you're an entrepreneur and you confide in people about the emotional side of entrepreneurship, they say dumb stuff like, why don't you just get a job? Or if you celebrate with someone and you tell your spouse, who's a supportive spouse, and you say to your spouse, I had this big win. And they're like, oh, pet, honey, that's so nice. And you're like, no, but you don't understand, right? So the emotional side has its own kind of intensity that only other entrepreneurs will get. And I'm an entrepreneur in addition to having a background as a trauma therapist. And so for the emotional side of things, like I can be right there with you. And as you probably know, working in the resilience field, when emotions are hot, right, we're dysregulated and we can't think straight. So the very first step, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what your challenge is emotional support so that you can regulate your nervous system and regulate your mind, because we literally flip our lids and then we have just the emotions in the middle here. So when we can regulate the emotions, the frontal cortex comes back online and then we can think straight, take in new information, make plans and solve problems, right? So my job, when you're freaking out, you're here going, ah! My job is to come in as the person who's regulated and you go, ah. And then you go, oh, I remember what I need to do. And then together we make plans and solve your problems. Amazing. And that's the two sides of the work that we do.
Yeah. Well, and when we first met, that was what I really enjoyed in our discussion is with your background. I think there's a very different perspective, both on the kind of the mental health side or the how you regulate yourself side from your past experience. And also obviously the entrepreneurial side, because I agree with you. I think many people have had that experience of thinking, like myself included, entrepreneurship isn't that different. Then you get into it and you try to talk to people who think entrepreneurship isn't that different. And it can be really challenging because you put so much of your heart and soul and time into this project.
Right. And isolation, we all know that's a social determinant of health, right? Yep. And nowadays the talk about isolation, like it has an impact for seniors, they say isolation has the same impact as smoking. So we know that it has a significant effect on our health. And for entrepreneurship, which is such a narrow scope of experience, there are very few people who are working in this area. to be able to address the isolation, I think is really important, because it does have an impact on your physical and emotional health.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I obviously shared passion, because I end up talking a lot about relationship and the impact that has on mental health, which is what you're saying. And yeah, the reality of entrepreneurs, 72% of entrepreneurs are directly or indirectly affected by mental health, whereas it's 48% of employees. So it's a real thing that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yes.
So when we're talking, and once again, I really enjoyed our other conversation, we ended up talking a lot about resilience, which is super, super important in terms of all this and that mental health piece. Could you maybe start by defining resilience as you see it?
Sure. The definition of resilience that I really like is advancing despite adversity. So, there are common understandings of what resilience means. It means like bouncing back quickly, being unhurt by what happened, keeping on going, powering through. And I think these are limited or inaccurate understandings of what resilience is, because I do think that we cannot avoid being affected by what happens to us. And the beauty of this particular definition acknowledges that we can, even in the midst of the challenge, we can advance our projects. We can advance in ways that we want to, that we can exercise some influence over what happens to us. But I do want to say, within the definition, this definition of resilience, I want to draw attention to the role that privilege plays and that adversity plays in your capacity to advance despite adversity. Because if you've had adverse experiences in childhood or in life before this, that will have an impact on your capacity to develop the skills of resilience. It will have an impact on your capacity to, it has an impact on how you think about yourself and how you see the world, right? And so, but also privilege makes everything easier. It's like privilege is like having the wind at your back instead of the wind in your face. And so these two factors play a significant role in a person's experience of resilience. And it's important to recognize that when we don't have systems and structures in our way, or that are blowing in our face and pushing us back, we do better. So there's a way in which this idea of resilience is a very white, Western, middle-class, heterosexual concept. And that folks who experience oppression actually have negative association with the term resilience, because they're considered courageous. We say, oh, how courageous, or what an example you are for people, or how inspiring you are, when really what should be happening is that we should be working to remove the structures of oppression that these people are facing, that prevent them from advancing in the ways that we can, and the ways that they would like. So while I believe that, why I think resilience is an important topic, and I believe that it's a series of learned skills, it's important to recognize that there's a context for that. And without acknowledging the context, when a person hears you and me talking about, oh, resilience, it's so great, and all you have to do is grow these skills, that's not the case for everybody. And people who see this then blame themselves. Well, what's the matter with me that I can't be resilient? Well, it's nothing the matter with you. It's the world. It's the systems and structures that work to your disadvantage, right? So it's a very complex topic.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And that's definitely when I look at that therapeutics piece, and that's, I'm guessing, where this came from, of, our society is so individualistic. It's so, you succeed or fail because of just you, which is very wrong. It's a horrible internalized piece. And yeah, looking at things like that without context ultimately is not helpful. And especially that context, to me, of trauma, which obviously oppression can lead to.
Well, it does. It absolutely
does. It totally does.
And so that's part of just to kind of tie that to the two aspects of the work that I do, like the emotional side of things, that we're going to work together to see what is at play, that it isn't only, well, you just need to learn to communicate better, or you just need to learn, develop more support networks or something like that, right? That we look at what's happening in a context. And when there are systemic things at play, then we look at, only the French word is coming to me, déresponsabilité, like déculpabiliser, to take away the personal guilt and responsibility, take that out of the equation. Yeah.
Totally. So but it's so much more complicated, and I like that you acknowledge that. So but with saying that,
yes,
for people that are looking to do this, obviously we don't know who's watching and their circumstance. Do you have some things that people can try, or what would be a good starting point for people to start looking at resilience and how they can build that in their lives?
Well, as you know, how we appraise or evaluate what happens to us, the stories we tell ourselves, the way we think about things can play a significant role in the emotional impact that they have. And so I want to tell a personal story that will illustrate the tactic that people might like to try. So I've experienced significant adversity in my life. And in the years leading up to the pandemic, the arrival of the pandemic in Canada last March, I had experienced a series of significant stressors. And COVID was only, it kind of paled really in comparison in my life to some of the other stressors had occurred prior to that. So there were a couple of years of really hard going for me in my business and in my personal life. And when COVID hit, what I chose to do was to look back at my life and to notice that I'm going to take a moment and just gather the words that I want to say. To look back at my life and to notice where am I now and what I had been through. And of course, I've done therapy, so this is not the first time around. The foundation of the work was done already. But I looked at those things and I thought to myself, not one of them turned out the way I thought they would. None of the things that happened to me were things that I would have expected would happen. The plans I laid didn't work out, that. None of the outcomes, but nevertheless, after every one of them, I was okay. Not fantastic, not everything all works out, but I was okay. I was alive and I had survived and I was okay. And I could take the next step on my path. So for me, that came down to a sense that the things can work out for me. And that was an important point of view to take into the pandemic. And to say to myself every morning, and I did, I put an alarm on my phone so that every morning at 7:00, it reminded me that I can be okay. I can be okay. I can be okay. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what to do about it. I can take the steps today and I can be okay. And that really, especially after 3 years of shit, to be totally honest, to have that to cling to really made a difference for me. And this is an example of what we might call failing forward. This is a really popular term, failing forward. But when I read that for myself, I'm like, what does that actually mean? It's a nice idea, but in practice, what is it? And in practice, it's, with some hindsight, looking back at what you might call failures or mistakes or things that didn't work out, and looking at what are the strengths that I brought to that situation? What is it that, even though the outcome was not what I wanted, what worked? Or what helped me? What supported me? What were my strengths? What part of me did I bring to that? And to that retrospective helps shift the story away from, this is a mistake and something to avoid. I'm a shit because I did all these wrong, bad things and it didn't work out, right? The story is different. The story is, it didn't work out, but I did okay. I didn't get the result I wanted, but I brought my strengths to the table. I know that I can be okay. And to me, that's what failing forward looks like, is that kind of changing the story, looking at the failure and drawing the gold, mining it for the gold.
That's beautiful. And it really makes me think of that entrepreneurial journey at the beginning, talking about all the challenges and feeling alone maybe in those.
Yeah.
And, I think there's probably very few entrepreneurs that haven't had that experience of failure of some sort in their business, that they haven't felt, why did I do that? I just wasted my money marketing that, or why didn't I get my ideal client? So I love that idea of being able to look at it from a strengths-based perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and that's one aspect of resilience, is how we talk to ourselves about ourselves, right? And if we have a story, if we can cultivate the story that I have strengths, and even in this I have strengths, that serves us going forward.
Oh, definitely. And how rare is it that we as a society focus on that? Right? We always will go in our lovely negativity bias in our brain. We'll go, hey, don't talk about those strengths. You suck. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and there's an important move to make around this, because when I talk about this way of thinking about things, then the question people often ask is, well, how do I stop talking shit to myself? Yeah. And it's actually, I believe, an important aspect of our protective capacity, our the way our organism and our mind helps us stay safe. This critic is coming to try to help us do better. Yep. It doesn't have a great way of delivering the message, but the underside of it is that it cares for us and wants us to do better. Yep. And we also can't stop it because, as you say, the negativity bias, it's just it's part of the way the mind works. Yep. So the move is that when you notice this, to pause, first of all, and go, oh, I know what's happening. This is the critic. Yep. And I know that the critic is trying to help me out. It has my best interests at heart. So thank you. Thank you, critic. I'm so grateful that you're here to try and protect me. I'm so grateful that you're here trying to help me out. Thank you so much. And then the next step, right, which is to look at what are my strengths here, to remember what are my strengths here. And it's important to say resilience is proactive. When the shit hits the fan, it's not time to do this exercise. You prepare yourself in advance by doing these practices so that then when the shit hits the fan, they're your go-to things. They're your automatic responses. Many people will try the first time that they're in a big situation and the inner critic comes to say thank you to the inner critic. And then they're like, come on, what are you kidding me? This sucks. I feel terrible. And it's true. Of course it sucks. And you do feel terrible and it isn't going to help. But when you've done the preparation and then you can use the move to say, thank you. And now I'm going to look at my strengths. Yeah. It's something that has value to you rather than trying to learn it when your lid is flipped,
Yes. Well, and that is my passion, is really helping people with that proactive piece, and also how much harder it is when you don't think you have a problem to put in the effort, right? And think about that piece. And what I love about resilience and what you're talking about is it's something that maybe you don't need to start with a ton of effort, right? You can just notice it.
Tiny, itty bitty little doable things.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can listen to the critic say thank you, not fully believe it, because it is still telling you things that probably aren't going to don't buy into the story.
Right. But it's not about the story. It's about the intention. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah,
so
exactly.
Recognizing the intention in the moment. Yes. Over and over again, outside of the big explosion moment. Yes, you're right.
No, that's excellent. That's a good starting place. So people, what do you find people experience after, they've started doing the work, they start noticing this voice, they start saying thank you, I'm also going to look at my strengths. Is there a next step to that, or what do people start seeing? Like, how do you move on from there?
Well, again, we're coming back to the mindset. The value is that you have a different point of view, so that the next time something comes up, you've got a different point of view that helps you advance in the adversity rather than having the adversity knock you back. So it takes less out of you when you hit the bumps. You have a story about yourself that I have skills to handle this. I just need to remember what they are. Sometimes, again, if your lid is flipped and you have the skills, but you're like, ooh, what were they? What was that thing? Right? Then you have your biz bestie or your professional, confidant, or you call somebody you work with, your consultant or your coach or your therapist, and you say, what was that thing? And they go, this is what, and you're like, oh yes, I remember. And then you're back at it, right?
Yeah. Well, and that takes away, if you can train yourself to remember that in those situations where that is happening, where you're feeling that sense that there are other people, right? To go back to that isolation sense that we talked about at the beginning. Because if you truly believe that you are alone on this journey, or at least when you're in those moments that you feel truly alone, that's a huge resource that you might be giving up.
It is a big resource. And when you think there's nobody there, even when there is, this has been my experience, this is part of my recovery journey, that the story I had based on my childhood experiences, that there's nobody going to come when I need the help. And when the help comes, it hurts. It just makes things worse. And it took time for me to experience things differently and to have a different story about myself. And as an adult, I could see in my adult years the period when I thought those things, how they prevented me from seeing the help that was there for me. And then with hindsight, I was like, oh my gosh, I missed all of this that was there for me, but I couldn't see it because I could only see part of the picture, right? So that that sense of support, part of resilience is training ourselves to see that the support is there. And that we can ask for support, and to be able to discern, and this is so important, and this is such an important aspect of resilience as well, is discernment, to know where to go for what. Because one of the things that we can do is ask in the wrong place and then tell ourselves the story, there's no help for me.
Yeah.
Right. And so using discernment about ask where the appropriate context for what kind of support you need. That really matters. But the truth is, with the right support, we are stronger.
Yep.
It helps us do more. We have this bias in this culture, especially around mental health. There's such a stigma, right? That if I admit that something's going on and I need support, that I'm weak.
Yep.
But, oh, kitty cat.
Yeah, mental health support right here.
Yes, there it is. But, if you stop to think about what a dam with a hole in it, what will happen to a dam with a hole in it that is not supported?
Eventually it'll break.
Right? But if you put that support there, like I'm envisioning in my mind that brick dam, and I'm envisioning the wall and the support behind the legs behind the support that are holding it up, and then the whole concrete footings and all that stuff. How much stronger does it make the dam? It's like a literal fact. We are stronger with support. And yet we have this idea that asking for support makes us weaker. What the heck?
Yeah. Yes. There's a lot of societal messages that I would love to undo from our narrative.
Yeah.
And that is definitely one of them, the idea. And that comes back to me to that like individualistic, don't ask for help because it's all on you and it's all your fault.
Yeah.
So I was wondering with this, because you're kind of bringing again this piece back of with your own story, right? There was this piece of trauma and pain that you had to get past that story to get to a place where you could be developing this. If people are still maybe experiencing a little bit of that sensation, or they feel they're trapped in a bit of a story but haven't gotten out yet, haven't figured that out yet, is there anything else you would recommend for them to gently start exploring that, aside from obviously like there's seeing professionals, but just even as self-practice they could do?
Yes. So I'll get there in a second, but I want to say, as a lead into that, I've just lost my train of thought, so I'm going to pause for a second. It's not coming to me. So, oh yes, now it did. Both and. So this is not about toxic positivity. Because the work of trauma recovery is integration, right? It's not, and you talked about, I think you said overcome, you used a word like overcome or something. And I prefer to use the word metabolize or integrate, because the truth is that there was something bad that happened. And what we often think is that these mindset or these resilience things are going to erase, like negate the bad, and we're going to have the positive instead. And really the truly robust work is the integration to the whole, so that we see the whole picture, both the quote unquote bad and the quote unquote good.
Yeah.
Right. So whenever when we're failing forward, for example, to come back to the previous activity, is to say, yes, this sucked, and to hold both of those. I was strong. I brought these strengths.
Yeah.
So a first step that can seem kind of tough for people along the lines of this both and is to start with, yes, that was actually really hard. Because one of the tools that we use to survive is minimizing, right? It wasn't so bad. I had food, I had a roof over my head, my childhood wasn't that bad. Or, well, he didn't hit me, right? They're all, I survived, I'm okay, as ways of protecting ourselves from stuff that's unbearable. And a very first teeny tiny little step can be to, like, kind of out of the side of your eyes, just kind of go, yeah, that was actually hard for me. That was actually hard. And to maybe even offer yourself like a gentle kind of, yeah, that was actually, that was a heavy load. I had a tough time. And there's something about the validation that is regulating too, right? That validation is an emotional regulation technique. It helps soothe the nervous system. That can be just the tiny little step enough in the right direction to say, yeah, like, and I'm actually, how I feel about that is actually legit. Like, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yep.
This is a kind of a phrase that we use in trauma work that I think is really very powerful. My reactions are normal reactions to an abnormal situation. There's nothing the matter with me. I'm not crazy. What's crazy is what's happening. Actually, what's happening in me is a normal response to this abnormal situation.
That's a lovely reframe, and I really like your language reframe as well for the overcoming. Yeah, it's just a lovely way to think about it, that not quite destigmatizes, but it changes, it shifts the power of it a little bit.
Yes, so. It does. Yes, yeah. Yes. I think that's it. Power is always a concern of mine. And to want to negate bad things and pretend that things didn't happen and to minimize in the name of continuing on, of productivity and growth at all costs. Like, that's not capitalism, as the poster says. Capitalism is not healthy for children or other living things, and it truly isn't. And we've tried to find ways of coping that says that we have to get over it. We have to put it behind us. We have to move beyond it. And in fact, somebody used an image the other day of, and in fact, here on our farm, we have fences and trees grow up through the fences, and the tree grows around the fence. Yeah. The tree integrates the fence and then grows on. And that's often in the work of facing adversity, that we integrate and metabolize it and grow on. Because we can't make it unhappen. It happened.
Yeah. Well, and all of that, what you're saying with that, and what you were saying too with the toxic positivity side of, yeah, I was just thinking of how, it's okay to not be okay when we're kids and something bad happens and our parents say, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And so that idea of, keeping the positive, keeping the knowledge that you are safe, that you're not abnormal to be reacting, the way you are, but not that you have to be okay in every situation, that you don't have to mute your emotions, stop crying, and be okay.
Yeah. It's actually okay to have the reaction you're having.
And what a powerful reframe with that.
Yeah, really, I find it shifts the experience. I mean, I do these things myself, right? And I find that when I because I do have a propensity to kind of like be like, no, it's not happening. But I also have created in my life supports that give me the opportunity to kind of sink into the reality of what's happening and to validate for myself, no, actually it is happening. Yeah. And it actually has hit me pretty hard. And then I get regulated, and then I can, then my lid comes back on and I can keep going.
I love it. I really hope this was useful for people. They have. I know he's doing that.
I love kitties. They're the best.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hope this is distraction. Lives, what fun. I hope this was really useful for people today. I hope it kind of gave people that chance to be gentle to themselves. Hopefully, get the message of, it's not a lot of work. Take a little time to do that resilience work now. Because same thing, if you could go back before COVID and have shored up your defenses a little bit more, I think a lot of people would have taken that opportunity now, knowing what you know. It's the same thing with all of this. Once you look back, it's much easier to go, oh, I should have done that. Are there any final thoughts that you would like to share with people around this that you think are really important for them to know?
I think I'll repeat what we just were talking about, the value of self-validation, right? If there's one thing that you take from this, to be able to say to yourself, what I'm feeling is legit. What I'm feeling is okay. It's okay to have this reaction. I think is one of the most powerful itty bitty little moves, right? You don't have to arrange time off work, shut off the phone, get your assistant to come in, leave the house, spend all this money. And then, in order to get this sense of relief, you can, in the moment, validate yourself. I think that makes a big difference.
Amazing. And so we'll make sure, by the way, that if anyone wants to contact you, that information will be in the chat box or in the comment box, so they can do that. Yeah. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here today. I love the work you're doing. I think it's truly important and impactful, because a lot of people, even hearing this, might go, yeah, that's me. I'm working on it. And it can be really hard, obviously, to do by yourself. It's not always the easiest work to look at and just be like, yes, I have learned about this and I'm going to do it. So I hope people take the opportunity to start here and know that they have an amazing resource if they want to do that work a little further.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. And we will say bye now.